Vice President Harris will make a rare trip on Friday to a state that is not on the list of battlegrounds. She's going to give a major speech on abortion rights in Texas, a state that has virtually banned abortions. CNN's Priscilla Alvarez broke the news this morning and joins me now from Madison, Wisconsin, where former President Barack Obama and Governor Tim Walz will speak this afternoon. Priscilla, tell us about your reporting.
Well, Dana, this is a bit of an unusual stop in the closing weeks of the election, and in some ways it's less about location, more about message. Of course, this has been part of the strategy from the beginning, doubling down on reproductive freedoms. And Democratic officials and campaign officials see this as an issue that is galvanizing for voters. And sources I've spoken with say, look, Texas is the epicenter of these abortion bans. Texas, of course, effectively banning abortions. And the vice president on the campaign trail calling this, quote, a health care crisis, and featuring women in ads and on the trail that are from Texas, like Kate Cox, who have been impacted by this. So certainly this is part of the strategy to lean further into reproductive freedoms as they close out this election. Now, in addition to this, it's part of the broader attacks on freedoms that the vice president has been talking about repeatedly on the trail. So she's going to be delivering this speech in Texas on Friday. She'll also notably be joined by Representative Priscilla Alvarez, who is running for Senate. Now, during her stop there, she'll also be doing a podcast interview with Brene Brown. This is what we anticipate over the course of the next several days, is the sprinkling in of traditional and non-traditional media to try to get more exposure for the vice president. But Dana, of course, the vice president started 2024 with a reproductive freedoms tour. She is now ending her campaign with much of the same focus. But this will be a significant stop, given that it is in a red state like Texas, but where the campaign thinks that they could really amplify this message and underscore the stakes of the election.
Sure is. Great reporting. Thank you so much, Priscilla. And back here, MJ, you've also done a lot of terrific reporting on the campaign, and also specifically how much, despite all of the sort of, as we've been talking about, kind of micro-targeting to different demographics, how much over all of this is the issue of Roe and Dobbs, which is in place now.
A very important issue for all of the reasons that Priscilla just mentioned. They fundamentally believe it is an issue where they're on the right side. They can harness that anger, that frustration, and have it really represent something that sort of paints a picture of an era that they think voters don't want to go back to. Just in terms of the general mood of the Harris campaign right now, as Priscilla is traveling out there in the really final stretch. I was talking to one senior campaign source this morning, and they said, you know, we only have 13 more wake-ups left. And they casually mentioned later in the conversation, you know, sometimes people apparently say that in prison as a way to count down the number of days that are left. And I said, wow, that's quite the term to use. And they said, you know, it's basically optimistic. Like, we are counting down. We are ready for this to be over. But fundamentally, it's optimistic because you're looking forward to what comes next when this current stage is over. I mean, the campaign in general, they absolutely believe that this is going to be a close race. And they believe that because every single piece of data shows that every single battleground state is going to be competitive.
Incredibly competitive and too close to call. And on that note, I want to turn to a terrific piece by our colleague Isaac Dover, which you can read on CNN.com today. And we'll just give you a little taste of it. It's entitled, "A Jittery Harris Campaign Makes Big Plans to Clinch a Narrow Win. Expect more events like the vice president's interview with Charlamagne the God and Julia Roberts' trip to Georgia, both ideas that came right out of the campaign's research. We're not throwing spaghetti against the wall. We have literally studied who these voters listen to," said a campaign official, which kind of reminds me of what David Plouffe was saying on this show on Friday, which is when he was talking about Trump being untethered and unhinged and all of those things. He was pretty clear every one of those terms, never mind the strategy to go after Trump, it's all based on the data that they are seeing.
It does sometimes from afar have the spaghetti against the wall feeling, because they're careening from talking about abortion to democracy to Trump's lunacy to narrow casting at these very specific swing groups that are up for grabs. And in a way, when everything is so close, you have to play small ball in order to get those incremental percentages that get you across the line.
I like that. I got that sports analogy.
Thank you.
Small ball.
Yeah,
And what sport is that?
Well, I think you were talking about football. You got it, well, right?
I mean,
We're going-
small ball.
you gotta
is
go
like a
yard by
universal
yard
sports
sometimes.
analogy.
Okay, all right. I had football
Okay.
on my
It's like-
football season.
It is. It is.
Okay, all right. Let's focus on politics. Liz Cheney spent the day with Kamala Harris yesterday, and she had so many interesting messages. One of them was reminding people, particularly women, that nobody sees who you vote for. Watch this.
You know that she is going to always be thinking about what is best for this nation. We might not agree on every issue, but she is somebody that you can trust and someone that our children can look up to. They do worry about a whole range of things, including violence, but they'll do the right thing. And I would just remind people, if you're at all concerned, you can vote your conscience and not ever have to say a word to anybody.
I mean, look, what they're trying to do is create a permission structure for Republicans to go against their tribe and to vote for Kamala Harris and to keep it a quiet secret in the ballot box. That seems like a fine strategy. I'm more interested in their private conversations between Liz Cheney and Kamala Harris and what they talked about on foreign policy, but that's my own prerogative as a reporter. Like, when you have people from such obvious ideological differences, what do they talk about? They're like, so, about that Iraq war, is it just kind of brushed under? But it's endorsements are always about permission structures. It's not about actually getting Democrats there. It's about trying to find some sort of wavering independent, being like, well, even Republicans are voting for her.
And before you come in on this, forgive me, I just want to play some of what Tim Walz said on The Daily Show, which is kind of about this theme.
The Cheney thing, do we really have to do that?
Look, it goes broader than that. Look, Bernie Sanders, Dick Cheney, Taylor Swift.
No.
That one.
No.
Oh, the cheating?
No.
Having the Cheneys on board?
Nah.
The constitutional piece?
Yes.
There are a lot of people out there. I think Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney give permission to those folks who want to find a reason to do the right thing. It doesn't mean they agree with us. We're not going to take their foreign policy decisions and discussions, and implement those.
I think that shows like the tricky nature of what the Harris campaign has to do. They're kind of playing Jenga, right? Like they have to pull a piece out to keep it hanging, because whatever they pull on this side, when they tack a little bit to the center, they're going to upset the left. And if they do it, and that's what they're trying to keep it from toppling over. Whereas, as I said, the Trump is Trump. And so he's just going to give you what he's not trying to broaden, right? Like he's not trying to bring more people in. It's either you're interested in it or you're not. And there are people that are interested in it. And he's seeing that. We're seeing those black male voters and those Latino male voters who are interested in it. And so he's just selling what he's selling. But whereas, you got to play a little Jenga if you're Vice President Harris.
And you were raising the question before of missing the forest for the trees. I mean, there have to be trees to make up a forest. Yes, the campaign, of course, needs an overarching, coherent message. That's always important. But I do think the Harris campaign is really leaning into these small pockets of voters adding up. And that might be Latino men here and there. It might be, Republicans who never would have thought about voting for a Democrat in past cycles. They are hoping that all of that will come together, I guess, to make a forest.
And if you're eating lunch, grab the Tums, because I'm going to read this quote from Isaac Dover's piece. At some level, you just want to be the one to make the last argument to them as loudly as you possibly can, one top Democratic operative helping to get Harris elected wrote in a text. Here's the Tums part. But this thing is going to be decided in the last week. I am sure of it.